So you've made a budget, whether it be rough draft or refined, and you see that the numbers are not adding up. Your expenditures are exceeding your monthly income. You're living above your means. What now? Easy now. It's not the end of the world. Unless you're like spending double the amount of money you make. Just kidding, just kidding. I'm a firm believer that anyone can make it out of debt traps and living above their means. Some will just take longer than others. So how do we get these numbers to add up? Well, in a previous video, we discussed some methods on increasing our income, but what can we do to decrease our expenses? Well, depending on the situation, there are a lot of options, and I want to break down some of them in this video. We can even refer to my in-progress budget. Only in progress, mind you, because life is moving things around right now, so some aspects of my own might change. But first, I want to go more in depth on the most important part first. We touched on this in a previous video, but it needs a bit more detail. Let's talk about debt and interest. As stated before, debt that accrues interest is the most impactful, crushing aspect of personal finance, at least in my experience, and I imagine many others. Your number one objective should be to pay off any and all debts as soon as possible. And going forward, if you cannot buy something twice other than essentials, you need to reinforce the idea that you cannot afford such things. No more borrowing until your income exceeds your expenses. Now, most people seem to use and recommend the debt snowball method popularized by Dave Ramsey. This method uses psychological tricks. Specifically, it recommends to pay off debts in order of smallest amounts to biggest amounts of debt, regardless of interest rate. This will give small wins in the beginning to reinforce the behavior by paying off more debts sooner to help stimulate the idea of making progress. Now, this works for most people, but for me, I like to do things a little differently. Granted, I almost never have more than one or two debts at any given time because I'm very debt averse. But regardless, my method is to pay off in order of highest to lowest interest rates. Interest rates for debt are like building snowmen almost. The longer you go without putting dents into the debt with high-ish interest rates, the interest will keep tacking on more money every month to what you owe. And it goes off the amount, so as it tacks on more, it'll charge more every month. So my rule of thumb was to always pay highest interest debt off first. Reason being is interest accrued is giving money away in my mind. I didn't spend that money to make anything or gain anything. So first focus on whatever you can spare, if at all, to paying off the most important debts. You should figure out which method would work for you best. Now apart from that, let's use my budget as an example. Remember, you're not going to see too much debt here, but I'm actively trying to downscale my expenses too, so this will be helpful for me as well. The first expense on my budget is rent. Now it's at $1,500, which is an estimate for the future because I'm in the process of looking for a new apartment, and $1,500 is kind of my ceiling. But this is the easiest expense to try and make cheaper by sheer amounts. Getting a roommate or a cheaper place to live will shave off a lot on this expense, but it's also one of the most effort-intense things to change, having to move in or out unless you get a roommate for your current living space. As far as the electric bill, there's actually a little known way that you can sometimes use to reduce this cost. For this one, you need to research your town or municipality and see if your area has a local electric delivery service/rate. I know a lot of towns in my area do, including my own. I just have to sign up for it, and they do most of the work to set it up. And it's basically a discounted rate on electricity delivery from what I understand. Might not amount to the most money saved, depending on how much electricity you use, but any small amount can help. Next is food. For me, this is about $200 a week or $800 a month. I keep it in cash to keep it close to the budget controlled. This is usually one grocery run a week plus going out 1 to 2 times a week pretty comfortably. This can probably be tightened up a bit as I've cut out coffees and store-bought breakfast sandwiches every day, saving about $7 to $10 a day with just that, which ends up being $35 to $50 a week saved. If you're spending a lot of money on food, especially more than this, as a single adult, you probably could find some easy ways to save money here. Now the next one is my Verizon bill. This one I've been learning about more recently myself. I've discovered that the amount I've been paying monthly on my phone and data plan individually doesn't really come close to adding up to the proper amount of the monthly phone bill. I did some digging, and even smaller providers like Mint Mobile could affirm a new S26 and get me the equivalent plan for almost half my monthly bill Verizon's been charging me for the last 3 years. Not only that, but my bill's gone up by $10 a month since I got this S23 I have now. So I'll be switching to a different provider for sure soon. But don't get swindled by the big phone companies because they more than likely are charging you way more than they probably should. Now the gas bill. For this one, I figured I would fill up my gas tank at about $65 on average a week and borderline doubled it so that I make a big cushion for myself in case I have to move farther away from my job or I need to drive a lot more one week for whatever reason. This one doesn't usually have much room for improvement if you aren't driving everywhere all the time, obviously, because most people need to get around somehow. I got the oil bill next. This is averaged out throughout the year and rounded up a bit for a cushion if a winter season is longer than normal. And it usually ends up giving me a surplus that's a nice little bonus once winter's over. Car insurance is basic here. I've got insurance for 2 cars rounded up. Gotta have it as a necessity. Netflix because of the One Piece live action mainly. I'd recommend rounding this up or whatever may be similar to something like 20, but I'm still playing with this spreadsheet of mine. Same with YouTube, it should probably be rounded to $15 or $20. I canceled Adobe and grew up and got DaVinci Resolve for free, so we got to eliminate that, which was nice. I have nothing in savings because that will be determined after I'm in a new apartment with my bills sorted out and refined after that point. Now the car mods / repairs is kind of unique to me as a gearhead. This is designed to accumulate as a savings account somewhat so that I can still enjoy my hobby of car modification. Very important for me, and that's why it's so high. For most people, you could probably cut this in half to about 80 to 100 a month and let it accumulate, and don't ever touch that fund unless your car breaks and you need to send it to the shop or for maintenance. Even if it doesn't fully cover repair costs, it still takes a bite out of any of those bills that might come up. Very important if you have a personal vehicle that you need to make it to work. However, costs may vary per vehicle. Internet's kind of hard to modify or reduce as most places only have one Wi-Fi carrier, from my understanding. But if you don't use the internet for gaming or any other intensive uses, I think you could probably get a cheaper deal through phone carriers or boosters. And lastly, we have my cheap car payment. I took out a small loan of like $5,000 to $7,000 for my current car because I kept it under $10,000. I can do this a lot easier as I'm a gearhead and can work on cars easier than most people. But there are a lot of cars out there that are under $10,000 that will be reliable as well. If you're in the negative on your budget, you simply can't afford a nice car, period. But just like any debt, you should be aiming to pay this off as soon as possible. Some loans, like car loans, if paid off too quickly, might hurt your credit score. But if you can do double payments or pay off what's left in 3 to 4 payments and clear that, that'll free up some income to put into your other debts or go into savings every month. A key part of all this is once you reduce costs in whatever areas you can, do not, I repeat, do not start spending more just because you can. Think long term and start a 401k or IRA, or a savings account with a little bit better of an interest rate. If you up your lifestyle as you free up income, you'll stay in that same long-term financial place for longer. And until all your debts can be cleared, any extra freed up income should be poured into those debts. Now looking at my budget, obviously my wiggle room is quite small, even though my income is pretty decent for the average these days. But that's also not including any overtime, possible side hustles, and also heavily cushioning most of my expenses. Not only that, but my estimated rent is larger than what I'm hoping to get for a rent payment at the end of the day. So naturally, my wiggle room, and ideally yours as well, if you followed some of this advice, will be larger and give us some extra room for anything that might come up. So hopefully this helps someone out there kind of reorganize where their money's going, or gave you some ideas on how to better organize your financials. But that's all I've got for this video, guys. Be safe, and if you have any questions, constructive criticism, or more ideas on this subject, please leave them down in the comments below. Give the video a like and subscribe for everyday tips to hopefully help us live a little easier. See you guys.